rising up to explore the difficult topics of real life. Join us as we proclaim the good, the true, and the beautiful with the simple truth of Jesus Christ and His holy Catholic Church through Scripture, tradition, and the Catechism. And now, your host, Jim Havens.
It is great to be back with you on The Simple Truth. We consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong heart of Saint Joseph. Today is Testimony Tuesday, where we bring you real, live, first-hand testimonial accounts of the life-giving reality of Jesus and His Catholic Church. Our guest today is Myah Abraham. She is a 19-year-old director of Hosea GreatLife Teens. She's graduating this May with a double major in philosophy and sacred art. GreatLife Teens, Hosea GreatLife Teens, is a nonprofit pro-life organization that meets teenagers wherever they are to encourage, educate, connect them with the pro-life movement in a fun and uplifting way. You can learn more by going to hosea4u.org. That's Hosea, the number 4you.org. Also, Myah is going to be in Attleboro, Massachusetts this weekend, Saturday, April 29th at 5 p.m. for the Attleboro March for Life. Again, more information by going to hosea4u.org. It's going to be at St. John the Evangelist on Main Street in Attleboro. If you're listening anywhere in that vicinity, go check it out. Again, Saturday, April 29th, 5 p.m., Attleboro March for Life, featuring Myah Abraham. Myah Abraham, thank you so much for coming on to share some of your story with us today. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me on.
Great. Yeah, great blessing to have you here. So we always begin at the beginning. Let's start with childhood. What was your early life like, your family, the culture that you grew up in?
Yeah, well, I come from what you might call your classic Catholic family. I have 8 siblings. I'm the second oldest of those 8 siblings. I am the oldest girl. So as you might have guessed from just being the director of Hosea GreatLife Teens by 19 and starting my own pro-life organization, I have those older sister tendencies. But yeah, I mean, I come from a beautiful family. We lived in Texas most of my life. And yeah, I've always had that kind of pro-life background, but it really didn't really set into me until I was about 14. And my little sister, my youngest sister, she was born at 32 weeks. So I got to hold her and she was like the size of my hand, and she's a living human being who's now 7 years old now. So that's just kind of where the beginning of my pro-life journey started. But, you know, it really, really started in the womb and just living in a culture of life that my parents gave me, a family, a community that accepted life for what it was, and through that showed that there is dignity in human life. I was homeschooled, so I was blessed not to have too many influences that tried to indoctrinate me with the lies of the culture, that that any body is broken, and that women's fertility, as the lies of Margaret Sanger were, that our fertility is a disease. I was not indoctrinated with those lies, and always be blessed for that. And because of that, I just was able to have just a more pro-life upbringing that led to where I am today. So that's kind of a very summarized version of my background.
Yeah, wow, what a blessing. So we always try to follow the sacramental graces as we go here. So would you have been baptized as an infant, first Holy Communion around 2nd grade, confirmation? Can you kind of track the sacraments for us, and anything you want to share about any experience of first Holy Communion or confirmation as well?
Yeah. So I was baptized as an infant. My dad was not actually Catholic until I was about 5. So I did have that. My mom was Catholic, but it was when I was about 5 that my dad converted. So I did have that very, as like a middle schooler, I had that kind of conversion type energy around me, like learning about the beauty of Catholicism with my older brother and my dad and my parents. And so that was always a beautiful part of my upbringing. And so, yeah, so infant, I was baptized. And then around 7 years old, I had my first communion. And then I had my confirmation when I was around, I think when I was about to turn 13. I think that's when I had my confirmation. And yeah, I just like I said, like I think the pivotal point, I think, in sacramental life for me was the fact that my dad was a convert and a lot of our extended family was not Catholic. And because of that, I spent a lot of time trying as a younger girl, like when I was 8 or 9, really trying to understand like why I believed what I believed, because my cousins who were my age, or even my grandma, would ask me questions about Catholicism that I really didn't know how to answer. Like, well, why was I getting my first communion? Why was that such a big deal? Or why did I wear a scapular or things like that? And so from the young age of like 8 or 9, I felt like that was something I had to know how to defend and talk about. And so because of that, when I was 9, I started like a girls apologetics group for other girls, and I did that till I was probably about 16. But and we just had a community of girls who learned about our faith. But that really led up to my confirmation. That really taking your faith to be your own and understanding the importance of the graces that come with confirmation and being a quote adult in the church. So so as far as sacramental life goes, that's where I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. And so, speak to us a little bit more about your experience of the wider community growing up, the type of parish that you were going to, as far as was the community as strong in the faith as where you were heading as you're starting this apologetics group, especially. Tell us more about how you would attract people to that, and what was that like? Was it connected with a parish in some way? Anything else to share on that?
Yeah, well, parish community is really, really important. I would say until I was about the age of 11, I didn't have like as far as parish wise goes, it wasn't until I was about 11 that we switched parishes, because it really wasn't serving our family where we were, the community aspect of it. And we switched parishes to the Cathedral of Our Lady of Walsingham, which is in downtown Houston. So I'm originally from Houston, and we in the community there were so many younger people and so many younger like girls my age and people who were very into their faith, and a lot of evangelization and a lot of just like staying after mass and a lot of activities that we always did there. Whereas in the church we went to before, it was a great church. It was more of an older community, kind of just a much older church. And this, and so, yes, we switched here. That was really incredible. But like, as I mentioned, I was homeschooled. And so, we have here in Houston one of the most incredible Catholic homeschool groups you could imagine. I've never seen a better one, to be honest. We have a few hundred families a part of our homeschool group, and a great outreach, like a great way that, we use Flocknote and all of that. And so we've been able, all I would really have to do to attract people to come was just send this email out to the Flocknote. And I had, friends up to that point who I had known through other activities, a part of the homeschool group. So it really wasn't hard to get a good community group there. And I think community is key, right? Without community, I probably would not have continued learning about these things and have been as strong in defending my faith, because I knew there were other people who defended my faith with me who were my age. And so I've grown up with that group of people who continue to support me and be a part of all my crazy endeavors. And so so as far as community goes, when we switched to that parish when I was about 11 or 12 years old, that was really pivotal in having a community at the church. And then we also had the Catholic homeschool group, which was spread out across all the parishes in this region. There's so many churches in the Houston area, in like the Woodlands, which is where we were really based out of. I mean, I could throw a stone and there would be like 6 churches around me. So all these different people went to different churches. And so but the homeschool group is really great for that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very cool. Myah Abraham is with us. She is the director of Hosea GreatLife Teens. Myah, tell us a little bit about the background of how this idea came to you, how you started GreatLife Teens. What happened?
Yeah, well, as I had mentioned at the beginning of this, I had a little sister who was born premature at 32 weeks when I was about 14 years old. And I remember thinking to myself, like when she was born and being in the NICU for a couple months after she was born and seeing all these tiny babies, I remember thinking to myself, well, like obviously this is wrong. And of course, my parents had taught me about abortion and that it was immoral and that it was not helpful to the woman. It was killing a baby, right? And but I knew that up to age 14. But at age 14, it really set into me like I need to do something about this. Like, I know it's wrong, but aside from, going to the masses for the unborn and like praying at Planned Parenthood on occasion, I wasn't really doing much in that regard. And so when she was born, I was like, I have to do something, because I literally have seen with my own eyes the beauty of life and of what a baby at 32 weeks can still live, and just holding a baby that small, that will really, as a 14-year-old, really, really shape how you see life. So I knew I was going to do something about it, but I wasn't sure what. I was not very interested in very many things that the pro-life movement had to offer at that point. This was about 6.5, 7 years ago. And so I wasn't really interested, because I felt like it was all too political. I wasn't a very political girl. I didn't enjoy knocking on doors. I didn't enjoy like the whole political field. I kind of left that for my older brother, who really, really liked politics, but that wasn't my thing. And it seemed too complicated for me. It really, and so then I ran into Terry Beatley at Hosea Initiative, and I started GreatLife Teens shortly after that, after hearing the story of Bernard Nathanson. And I guess we'll get more into that after the break.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be right back with Myah Abraham, 19-year-old director of Hosea GreatLife Teens. Again, she's going to be in Attleboro, Massachusetts for the Attleboro March for Life this upcoming Saturday, April 29th, 5 p.m., St. John the Evangelist. If you're in the area, you want to make sure to go to this. You can go and find out more information as well by going to hosea4u.org. That's Hosea, the number 4, YOU.org. When we get back, we're going to have a bunch more with Myah, going to get into how her Catholic faith influences her pro-life views, gets her stronger, so much more. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Jim Havens, co-founder of the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion and Rally for Personhood. Some truths are self-evident, some rights are unalienable. It is a scientific fact that life begins at conception, fertilization. It is a foundational moral truth that we ought not murder innocent human beings. Every human being is a human person with a right to life and the equal protection of law according to the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Yet we have an ongoing daily mass murder of our little preborn brothers and sisters. It's time for all men and women of goodwill to rise up together in the public square and say no more. Come join us in Albany, New York on Saturday, June 3rd. Men, let's go first and gather at 9 a.m. for the Men's March. Women, we need you to join us at 10:45 a.m. for the Rally for Personhood outside of the New York State Capitol. We'll have some great speakers along with terrific opportunities for formation and fellowship before and after. Go to themensmarch.com for all the details. See you in Albany.
The Station of the Cross is listener-funded, and we value your ongoing generosity. In this fast-paced world, it's easy to let your recurring donation slip due to something like a new address or a card number change. If you suspect that we might not have your up-to-date donor information, you can check with us during regular business hours at 1-877-888-6279 extension 104, or anytime online at thestationofthecross.com.
Are you ready to take on the world of flesh and the devil with just the facts? This is Jesse Romero, host of Jesus 911, heard weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm joined each day by a variety of co-hosts like Ruben Nava, Paul Clay, Dan Schneider, and my amazing wife, Anita Romero. We tackle Catholic devotions, spiritual warfare, family life, saving America, and everything in between. Join us each weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific for Jesus 911. God bless you. Keep the faith.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here. Testimony Tuesday with our guest, Myah Abraham. She is a 19-year-old director of Hosea GreatLife Teens. Learn more by going to hosea4u.org. That's Hosea, the number 4, YOU.org. Also check out the Attleboro March for Life in Attleboro, Massachusetts. That's where Myah is going to be this Saturday, April 29th, 5 p.m., St. John the Evangelist. Go out and see her there if you're in the area. So Myah, before we get into the whole story, reading Terry Beatley's book, coming into understanding of who Dr. Bernard Nathanson is and being impacted by that. Before all that, right, as you were laying out in that first segment, we can all understand, just on natural human reason alone, that our little brothers and sisters in the womb, these are human beings, human persons. Science tells us very clearly from conception, fertilization, we were all that size once, from that very small embryo all the way up to who we are today. And so this is clear, right? And there's a foundational moral understanding. We ought not be killing innocent human beings. So anybody can wrap their hearts and their minds around this, if only those hearts and minds are relatively open to what is true here. It ought to be clear to everybody. This ought to be something that, yes, is not only illegal in law, but also unthinkable in culture. But we're at a time where a lot of people aren't thinking too clearly, having a hard time seeing there's a lot of lies, a lot of deception out there. How was your Catholic faith instrumental in helping you perhaps to maybe see through a lot of that stuff? You already shared a little bit about how you were homeschooled and protected in a very good way from a lot of the garbage coming in, the indoctrination that you would have received in a government school, or maybe even many Catholic schools. But anything else you want to speak to that, the strength of the Catholic faith to help you to see clearly and understand things so that you were able to go ahead and step forward and take some action?
Yeah, well, I think the main part of that is, well, there are many people and who will say many different things. You know, you have Protestants who are pro-life, you have Catholics who are pro-life, but what you won't see, which is something that I saw only in the Catholic Church, is a church that 100% of the time for all of history has always said that life begins at conception, that abortion is wrong, and that contraception is wrong as well. And the reason I think that's so fundamental to our Catholic faith is because if on one hand we are preaching from the pulpit, you know, or if, you know, like, and I've seen this for my friends, I have many friends who are Protestant, I love them very much, but what I've seen is if you have a church who believes that that contraception, that's okay, then you already begin to lose the very dignity of human life. And as a girl, as a younger girl, as a teenager who liked boys and had crushes on boys, this was something that I thought of a bit, you know, and I always found that the Catholic Church was 100% of the time the only church that had a stance on what they believed about the human body. And I think theology of the body also was a huge, huge part of that. And that was something that was a part of our education at our Catholic co-op that we went to once a week. And so I think that's a huge part of this. And the reason I bring that up is because abortion is the final solution to contraceptive mentality. Abortion is the idea that we can, as Mother Teresa will say, that we use another person's body for our own pleasure, right? She says it's a shame that we live in a society. It's a sign of a broken society that we can kill a human person for our own pleasure, right? And that is the idea of a contraceptive mentality, that we can use another person's body for our own pleasure. And the final solution to that is abortion. And so what I've seen so many times, and I have seen this in my Catholic friends as well, whose parents maybe weren't as talkative, who didn't really talk about the subject of contraception very much. But I see this primarily outside of the church, this idea of, you know, teenagers who begin to have this contraceptive mentality, even though they say, oh, I would never have an abortion. They would never see that abortion would apply to them, but it's a necessary, and we see it in history, it's a necessary steps to that lead to abortion, is beginning with the contraceptive mentality. And so I think at the end of the day, since the Catholic Church protects the dignity of sex and protects the idea, what seems like such a foreign idea to so many people, that sex doesn't come with pregnancy, like for some reason, people have this idea, which is from the sexual revolution, but the church is the only place that I've seen it protected throughout history. Granted, you might hear some other things from different people at your parish, but go back to church doctrine, go back to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, go back to, go back throughout the history of the church, and have always protected sex, the body, and the human person. And that is so integral to our Catholic faith. And it's something that if parents talked about with their children, if we educated our teenagers and our younger people on, would fundamentally change how we see human life, because you're right. There are so many people that could accept that abortion is wrong, that abortion is a killing of a living human, unique human person. But the reason they can't see that is because their moral vision has been so skewed by the contraceptive mentality that I can use another person's body for my own pleasure. And then what do? We start seeing the human body as a tool and not as beauty, as the imago Dei that was given to it, right? And so in that way, I would say the Catholic faith, that's what sets us apart, even from Protestant churches that say that abortion is wrong. Is that it is the fact that we protect human life from conception, and protect the sacredness of sex as well. And so that would be, I think that would be it right there.
Yeah, great stuff here with Myah Abraham, 19-year-old director of Hosea GreatLife Teens, hoseaforyou.org. Yeah, I want to invite any Protestant friends who are listening. Look, we love you. You know, many of us who are Catholic have had quite a journey come into the Catholic faith, the fullness of the faith that Jesus died to give us in his Catholic Church. And so I just want to welcome you. You can go back and look through history, 1930, the Lambeth Conference, when the Protestant communities started to cave when it came to contraception, the contraceptive mentality. And then you see 1968, everybody thought the Catholic Church was going to cave, and what happened? Pope Paul VI, now St. Paul VI, put out Humanae Vitae, doubled down, tripled down, made it very clear what the Church's position was. A never-changing position that contraception was an evil, and this is something that is not acceptable. We've got to reject it, and we've got to understand why. I think Myah laid out some great points there, some great insights to understand that in a simple way. So Myah, share with us a bit more about that story where you first came to hear about Dr. Bernard Nathanson. We have had Terry Beatley on a couple of times, friend of the program. She's been a part of the men's march and rally for personhood as well, was with us in Boston last year. Her book, What If We've Been Wrong? Keeping My Promise to America's Abortion King. Her story with Dr. Bernard Nathanson and sharing his message going forward. Where'd you first encounter that? Tell us the story.
Yeah, so I encountered it at a Catholic conference. Some of y'all may have heard of it. It's called the Midwest Catholic Family Conference, and I think it's the biggest Catholic conference in the Midwest. And I was there. I was there when I don't remember how many years ago, but I was there as like a 14, 15-year-old, and I was in the youth section, but I really felt a call in my heart to get up and go to this random talk with this random lady that I had no idea who her name was. Like, I just never heard the name before, but I was like, I think I should go to that talk. So I got up, I walked across the building, and I ended up about 10, 15 minutes late to Terry's talk on the deadliest American hoax. And as a 15-year-old, I was just sitting in the back, and I was just like, why had I never heard this before? Why did I not know about America's abortion king? And I just remember after her talk, I went to my mom, and I was a speech and debater at this point. So I went to my mom and I said, I'm going to take this information and I'm going to write a speech and I'm going to win. Like, I'm going to make it to nationals with this speech because everyone needs to hear this message. And so I did. I bought her book right there. I had her sign it. I told her I was interested in talking more. She put her number in the book. And I ended up writing a speech on it, and I got 11th in the nation out of many, many people. And I was just so on fire with this message because it was a message that resonated with my 15-year-old heart. It was a message that I think that does resonate with every single heart, because it's not a message of hate. It's a message of love. And that's what also I think makes Hosea Initiative and what they do so radically different than what you'll see in other organizations, is that it is a healing message of love the nation needs to hear. And it's also learning the strategies that were used as me as a Catholic to make abortion legal. And it is just so much more than that, right? And I'm sure many of you who have listened to Terry before know all about his message. But as I grew older, I found myself like pondering the question of, well, how did he get to that point? You don't just become America's abortion king in one day. Like, what happened to his conscience? What happened to his moral vision that led him to where he is today? So anyway, as a 14, 15-year-old, I was like, I got to do something about this. So first I started like a book club with Terry, and then I turned that more into a pro-life club, and then COVID hit. And where we were having our pro-life club and everything, it wasn't working out. And so I had to find a different avenue to do it. So first I started through social media on Instagram and on YouTube, and I had a lot of success there. And I had so many teens throughout the nation just really ask me, well, what can I do? What can I do to share his message, to share his legacy, to heal the nation with this beautiful message of love? And I was about at that point last year where I had all these requests that I told Terry, is like, hey, we need to merge what we're doing together, because we're doing the same thing and we can be so much more effective together than apart. And so we merged with Hosea last June to be what we are today, Hosea GreatLife Teens. And there's so many ins and outs of that story that God really weaved together for his goodness, truly. And we really see it coming to fruition right now. But as I said earlier, it just came down to that primary question of, well, what led Bernard Nathanson to where he is today? Why are we trying to change the minds of teenagers and of college students and of young, career women when they're walking into the abortion clinic? That should not be when we're trying to change their minds. That change has to happen when they're 12, when they're 13, before they've been indoctrinated with a different moral vision, when we can actually impact their moral vision. And a huge part of that for me and for my faith was, thinking to myself, how can we fail to preach from the pulpit that the human body is beautiful, that your fertility is not broken, that how can we fail to teach, the younger people, because in the name of being inclusive, we have lost so much of what it means to have a moral vision, but at the same time expect so many teenagers to believe that that's the body and blood of Christ on the altar, right? If they don't understand the beauty of their own body. And so that kind of led me into what we're working on right now, and just helping teenagers to realize the dignity of their body so that they can recognize so much more than that.
Yes, yeah, we're going to get into a lot more about Myah Abraham's good work, what she's working on now when we get back, including the Attleboro March for Life coming up this Saturday, 5 p.m., St. John the Evangelist. So stay tuned. Again, you can check out the website, hosea4u.org. That's Hosea, the number 4YOU.org. And also, I love what Myah is saying there. Look, we've got to educate as early as possible, as often as possible. And at the same time, we're not going to hit everybody. There are still going to be people going into these abortion killing centers wherever they are. We do need people out there being the hands and feet of Christ to folks out there as well. We got to do it all. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Jesuit Father Robert McTagg, your dearly host of the Catholic Current. Join me on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern to reconnect with John Schweppe of the American Principles Project. The battle for life isn't over. We've got a fight in our hands, and we need to take the lead. Learn how. Join us on the Catholic Current on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, coming to you from the Station of the Cross and the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
We are planning something very exclusive just for you. Hi, Joe McLean here, host of A Catholic Take. And starting on Monday, May 1st, going all the way to Friday, May 5th, we have lined up a very special 8 a.m. hour, and I don't want you to miss it. We have invited a new priest each day that week to take your questions and your phone calls. You'll be able to call in, ask questions about the faith, the liturgy, the culture, and more. Don't miss it. It all starts on Monday, May 1st.
What you're offering and giving to me, you deserve to get back, because you're offering more than I can give.
I learned so much through the Stations on the Cross. I listen to the radio station daily, and I absolutely love it.
I was attending the chapel and places like that, and through your programs, I was able to find out how other Protestants had come back into the Catholic Church. God bless the Station of the Cross.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
Each weekday from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern, the Station of the Cross brings you Mother Miriam Live.
We are not to be discouraged. We can walk around angry. We have a right to be angry. We have a right to righteous anger. We have a right to be upset. But I tell you what, we do not have a right to. We do not have a right to lose hope.
Tune in from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern for Mother Miriam Live on the Station of the Cross and our free iCatholic Radio mobile app.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Myah Abraham, director of Hosea, GreatLife Teens. You can learn more going to hosea4u.org. That's Hosea, the number 4YOU.org. So Myah, what is the good work that you are up to now? Explain to us a little bit more. Are you still doing the online group? Are you inviting young people to come to that? Or is it mostly talks? What exactly do you have going that you'd really want to let people know about and invite people into?
Yeah, so as of right now, we're preparing for something really big that I can't share quite yet, but stay tuned for that. But as of right now, we're continuing the work we're doing, reaching youth through social media, and then we invite them to be part of our Messenger of Truth program, where they can be educated about how to share really true stories about the story of Bernard Nathanson, learn about the strategies that were used to make abortion legal, and then learn also about how they can counteract those strategies, right? And then a big part of our work has been a huge, which has been huge, and I think has really been really impactful to so many people, is really talking with women about the beauty of their bodies. And the reason that is really, really important is, I'll go and speak to 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds, and just as like a story, I when I was back in January, so I went and talked to a Catholic youth group, and I asked at the beginning of youth group, how many of you guys actually care about abortion? And 4 out of the 40 of them raised their hands. And so throughout my talk, I actually brought up things that applied to them, like the birth control pill, and about just the beauty of their cycles, and that they don't need the birth control pill, and that it can increase your risk of breast cancer by up to 54%, that abortion can increase your risk of breast cancer by up to 800% in the second trimester. And as I was talking to these girls, I realized, compared to other talks I've given, that finally applied to them. The abortion issue finally applied to them because these women believed the lies of Margaret Sanger, that their fertility was broken, that their fertility is a disease, and that their body is broken. And finally, I was able to share with them the story of Nathanson, about the beauty of how what he thought was women's healthcare ended up not being women's healthcare, really. And then also realizing that, as Nathanson will say, his 2 abortions were his gateway into being America's abortion king, his own 2 personal abortions. But yeah, he became pro-life. And so what we're really doing right now is helping, me specifically with teens, is helping teens to really have conversations with this at their college or in their high school by simply telling a true story. So training up these teens, sending them these resources. This is what I do for the teen part of what we do. And the reason that's so important is it's so much easier for these teens to be like, hey, I heard this amazing story about America's abortion king yesterday. Would you like to hear about it, to their friend, rather than saying, hey, abortion is murder. You need to stop believing in that, right? And the reason, and they're both true, right? But the way we present it matters so much. And I've been able to see when these girls, maybe I'm talking to a group of people who aren't necessarily pro-life, like those 40 teens I was talking to in January. By the end of my conversation, those 40 teens all said that they were pro-life and showed up at the March for Life the following week to hold our signs. And not all 40 of them were able to show up, but that is the impact of teaching teenagers about the dignity of their body and especially women, the intricate design for which God created their body for. And the reason I think this is really important is the story of the hemorrhaging woman, which we're all probably familiar with. But the hemorrhaging woman, she'd been hemorrhaging for 12 years, and she touched the cloak of Jesus in an act of desperation, and she was healed. But yet Jesus knew that she wasn't completely healed. And so he stopped and he said, who touched me? And everyone was like, who touched you? There's so many people around me, around you, you know, Jesus. And they were rushing to the centurion's house at this moment. And, you know, he said, who touched me? And when he turned to the woman, he said, daughter, your faith has saved you. And the healing word of that was daughter. And the reason that's so important to what we're doing today, when we encounter women who have experienced abortion or encounter people who have found themselves believing that abortion is women's health care, is understanding that they've lost their identity that God gave them as daughter for so many of these women. And finally, when someone realizes that they were created so intricately, there's so many ways they can support their bodies naturally, or just hearing a powerful story in a way that they're not even building up a wall before you have a conversation with them, completely can change the way they think about abortion. It can completely change their moral vision, because the devil has really, really gotten in there and indoctrinated them with lies. And so instead of telling them, you know, you're wrong for believing those lies, you know, having mercy on them for the fact that there were millions and millions of dollars that were spent by NARAL, by Bernard Nathanson's organization that he co-founded, NARAL Pro-Choice America, to indoctrinate these women. And being able to approach them with mercy can change their hearts can change their hearts so much faster. And so that's what we're working on right now. And we have our online program that we do that through, and then we continue to have our social media, the Inspire teens. So we live by these three things: inspire, educate, connect, right? Connect them with local teens in their community or local groups that we know about, and then inspire them through our social media or through in-person conversations with them or through speaking somewhere, and then educate them, right? Education, as Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, you know, and that is what is so important about what we're doing. Is this is not just a short-term solution as political wins can be, right? This is a long-term solution. This is educating the people, because, you know, people perish, as God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And we lose so many children to abortion because of the lack of knowledge, the lack of so many lies that they've been sold. And so we're called to liberate people with the truth. And so obviously we're focusing on educating a nation. And so in the next few months, we'll be releasing something really cool to help really educate the nation on a huge national scale, even better than we're able to do right now. So that helps kind of explain what we're doing right now.
Very good. Yes. Myah Abraham, director of Hosea GreatLife Teens, Hosea for You, Hosea, the number 4, YOU.org. And Hosea Initiative there, they one thing I do want to mention based on what Myah was saying, Hosea's got these great little fact check booklets that can help educate. You can get them in bulk, pass them out. One of them is about the lies of Marxist feminism and how that has spread, really, as Myah's telling us, that same sort of strategy of just telling a true story, telling the true story of how this really infiltrated the United States, and how these lies came in, and how they were very specific and so destructive in saying, let's tear down the patriarchy, which goes all the way to the top, to the top patriarch himself, which is God the Father. Okay, and so he's God is neither male nor female, but he reveals himself as Father for a reason, and that cannot be lost. That is important. And so men who are made in his image to live out being fathers, whether that's in religious life, whether that's as a priest, whether that's as a father of a family, for most of us, we're called to live that out in the image of God the Father. So there's a perversion of that, and I can see why some people would maybe mistake that for the whole thing being sick and you got to tear down the patriarchy. But no, let's see through it and understand that, yes, those perversions are exactly that. Those distortions, those corruptions of fatherhood are exactly that. Let's hold up the real image of what a father is meant to be, beginning with God the Father. Men, let's strive to live in the image of God the Father as we are called to. And let's help everybody to understand themselves as being called as sons and daughters of the Father in Jesus Christ by the power of the Holy Spirit. This is so important. It gets to the heart of exactly what we all need. And so, Myah, it's great to hear you talking about this. If young people are listening, if there are teens listening or those that are going to point teens to this program and they want to connect with you, they want to be a part of this Messenger of Truth program, what's the way that they can do that?
Yeah, the best way to do that is by going to hosea4u.org. You'll see a place, you'll be able to scroll through the website. You'll see like a place to sign up to be a Messenger of Truth. Or if you go to the tab that says login, there's also a place where you can start an account and take the educational courses as well. Or if you just want to connect with us a little bit and not quite sure you want to sign up for anything yet, you can find us on Instagram at GreatLife_teens. If you just kind of want to see like if we're a fun community that maybe you're not sure you want to be a part of yet, just, check us out on Instagram, give us a follow, and just continue seeing if you like our content. And we'd love to have you a part of the educational course and just learning about that, because, being able to just, maybe you have a personal story about the pro-life movement, and I'm sure that can be so, so powerful to people you encounter. But there's something so different about being able to share a true story or share incredible facts that no one ever knew. Like, for instance, that Bernard Nathanson would lie and would say that 60% of Americans, 64% of Americans wanted abortion on demand legalized, when the real number was 0.5%, right? When you share that with someone, they're not going to believe you. They're going to be like, what? Why would he say such a thing, right? Like, I don't believe that. And maybe this is a friend of yours that is leaning toward the pro-abortion side, right? You can encounter them with that truth, right? And help them get their wheels kind of turning and helping them discover the truth, right? We can't force someone to change their mind, but we can aid them on that journey. I always say, sometimes people, especially when they're younger, they'll see the pro-life movement as like Mount Everest, right? They're like, oh, that's just so big. Like, I really don't want to climb that. Like, I don't want to post on social media that I'm pro-life, because then I'm going to have to climb this mountain. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be so hard. Like, I'm going to have to protect myself. So what lie do they believe? The lie that Bernard Nathanson sold in the Catholic Strategy. Well, I could be personally pro-life, but I can still vote for a pro-abortion candidate. I can't say anything about it because it's a woman's choice, right? And so what we have to do is we have to even encounter the people, like our friends, who might just be leaning slightly toward the pro-abortion side because they won't say that they're pro-life to anybody, and encounter them with these beautiful stories that they can begin sharing. And what are we doing? What have we done? We're basically, we're providing them stepping stools to kind of climb that mountain, right? To aid them in their journey, because we can't physically walk the journey for them, but we can help and aid them, right? And so maybe instead for that friend, or maybe you are that friend that's afraid to say anything to anybody. And I understand why, because it's such a topic right now that's so polarized that you feel like you're going to get beaten down for. But when you have a story, such a powerful story of divine mercy on your side, you'll consistently be inspired by it and willing to share it. And what does that do? It reminds you of why you're fighting for human life. You're fighting for stories like this. You're fighting to bring love back to the world. And that changes the whole way we see the pro-life movement. When we remember that it's a human baby that we're fighting for, and we remember that it's women that we're fighting for who've been taken advantage by this. And so just simply being able to maybe even ask the question, being able to say, did you know that America's abortion king wrote to the organization that he founded, Wade Roe, and said in his departing message to them, in his parting letter to them, what if we've been wrong, right? And it's these compelling stories that can really, really, really help people to continue reading about his story, and that is our way to aid them, as you said, in their pro-life journey, right? And I think it's so important, as you were stating, it's so important that we're ending abortion at the root, but abortion also truly affects people already that we have to be meeting at the abortion clinics. And so you can share with them these stories and be there and help them see that life is beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah. And Dr. Bernard Nathanson put that story of divine mercy. He did come back to the Father. He came into the fullness of the Catholic faith in his conversion. What a beautiful, beautiful story it is in the fullness to read it and to understand it. And with regard to that, just understand that Jesus did come, the second person of the Holy Trinity, you better believe, did come as a man, as Jesus. And so, men, we can't be on the sidelines. Jesus goes. He goes forth. We need to go forth, right? That's why we have the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion, Rally for Personhood. But women, look at the highest saint of all, our Blessed Mother Mary. You've got to roll. We need to come together. TheMen'sMarch.com. We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. The Pontifical Academy for Life in the Vatican is responding to a moral uproar over the weekend. The Academy's president, Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia, appeared to speak in favor of assisted suicide in some evolving circumstances. President Trump promised Iowans over the weekend that if he returns to the White House, he would fight current abortion-friendly legislation that seeks unlimited abortion and even infanticide for abortion survivors. Republicans, mostly expert consultants who try to excise abortion from 2024 campaigns, run counter to Republican leadership who say that is the surest way to lose that election. Calling Democrat embrace of abortion barbaric, Senator Lindsey Graham says he welcomes election debate and thinks he and his Republican colleagues will be in good standing to oppose late-term abortion like most of the civilized world. This is Life News Radio.
A culture of life is like a bright city on a hill. Just as people in 1890 might have had difficulty imagining today's cities, so it may be today in imagining a culture of life. But it starts with more than imagination. It starts with the moral commitment to offer the highest regard to the gift of God hidden within each human life. Let's become the culture of life. In other stories, Canada is promising to offer chemical abortion to women if the U.S. bans abortion pills. Illinois' legislature is considering an entire shutdown of pregnancy support centers, and Catholic bishops are using Senate refusal to cut abortion funding for the VA as a teaching moment. They say abortion as a so-called solution to pregnancy, while denying the welcome of children and flourishing of the family, is inhumane. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Myah Abraham. She is director of Hosea GreatLife Teens, hosea4u.org. And a big event coming up this Saturday for those in the Attleboro, Massachusetts area. Attleboro March for Life, Saturday, April 29th at 5 p.m. St. John the Evangelist. Myah will be there for this event. Myah, do you mind sharing maybe a little bit, whatever you know about the background of this event, in the sense of letting people know maybe a roadmap for how events like this can come together if they want to reach out to you as a speaker to be part of it, but anything to share about the Attleboro March for Life, how it came together, and any encouragement for other people to do similar things.
Yeah, well, don't know too much about the March for Life, but what I do know is it's something they've tried, that the Attleboro community has tried to do consistently for a few years, and it's truly the people of this community and some of the high schools, the Catholic high schools in this community, coming together to show that we stand in support of life. So it'll look like a small march, sorry, not a small march. I don't know how many people. It'll be like a march, and then it will be a speaker, and then a march, and I believe that there's adoration at some point, I think is what I hear, and some praise and worship music as well. And I think it's just a time for, as we talked about at the very beginning of this this interview today, is really the importance of community, right? It's so, it's so awesome when an individual is pro-life, but it's like we continue acting and being pro-life, and we are inspired by a community. And that's why, a part of our mission is, we have Inspire, Educate, Connect, right? We have to connect people with other resources in their community to help them keep going. And so I think that's something that's so important about this march and about attending this march is maybe you're feeling uninspired and what you can do in the pro-life movement right now, but come to the march, get connected with people in your community, and get connected with some Hosea Initiative resources, the fact check books like we talked about, but just you can just get a little bit of energy, right, from the exhaustion that can come with being in the pro-life movement sometimes too. So I hope that answers your question well about the March for Life. I don't know too much about the history or background of the march, but that Hosea has a presence in the Massachusetts area, and so we wanted to be able to support this in any way we could.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good. Yeah, anything else that you want to share in this final segment? The floor is really yours. Anything else by way of personal testimony? Anything else that you want to share by way of education? You could have the rest of the segment. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, I would think that the main thing I want to share with people is that there's a simple quote that I live by, and I oftentimes will forget about it too, but it's, don't let the world change your smile. Let your smile change the world. Don't let the world change your smile. And so oftentimes when you're in the pro-life movement, remember that sometimes it's your actions that speak much larger than any words that you can to the pro-life community around you. And just to give an example of this, after the Roe v. Wade was overturned, I was in D.C. and I was at the Supreme Court the Sunday afterward. And I was standing outside with all the pro-choice people, as they call themselves, the pro-abortion people. And there was probably 20, 30 pro-abortion people, and there's probably 5, maybe 8 pro-lifers there. And there are different types of pro-lifers, and I thank them so much for their work. But there were some of them that were like fighting back with these people, yelling back at them. But there was this one woman, there was really these 3 women that came and kind of cornered me. And this one woman stood on my left and just blew a whistle in my ear. But the other woman came at me, and she was standing in front of me, and she said, "Call me a murderer. Like I killed 3 of my children." And she kept saying that over and over again to me, like, "Call me a murderer." And I looked her in the eye multiple times, and I just smiled at her, and I said, "I love you. God loves you, and there's so much forgiveness on the pro-life side." And I said, like, and I had said something along the lines of, such as people like Bernard Nathanson, America's abortion king. And I just kept telling her, "I love you." And by the end of probably that 10 minutes of her screaming at me, because what did she want? She wanted me to justify her anger, because I think the statistic is, it's something like 64, I don't remember exact percentage, but more than half of women who have an abortion know that they are ending human life. And so you have to ask yourself, what does it take for a woman to feel so pushed in a corner that she thinks that this is the best option for her right now, right? And it's because we've lost the meaning of love. We've lost the meaning of sacrifice in our community. But the reason I bring up this story is because after about 10 minutes of her yelling at me, she realized that I was not going to change my view on loving her, and on the fact that I had mercy for her, and I had forgiveness for her, and she walked away crying. And I think that was the first time that woman, who I think had probably stood out the side of the Supreme Court many, many days during the Roe v. Wade decision and yelled at many, many people and probably got yelled back to, had ever had someone say, "I forgive you," and had ever had someone say, like, "I still love you and God still loves you." And I think that's really, really important to remember for our pro-life work, is that we are here to restore identity that these people have lost, and who the devil wants them to believe that there is no hope, that there is loss. But that is what the story of Nathan's sins will prove to you 100% of the time. And it probably will to you, that there is always grace, that there is always forgiveness, that there is always mercy. And we get to deliver that, right? And for Nathan's sins story, a guy who personally resided over 75,000 abortions in his time in the pro-abortion movement, who made abortion as we know it today, and is responsible almost single-handedly for making abortion not only just acceptable, but literally like thinkable by people, right? And we have the job to make it unthinkable, and that really goes into ending abortion at the root. And as I posed earlier, I asked myself, well, what led Nathanson so far into believing, because you don't become the abortion king in one day, what had led him into being America's abortion king? And yes, it was a lack of love, but it was, you know, when you hear his story of his father and the family life he was a part of, and you realize that first of all, he was not whole as a human person. And what happens when you're not whole as a pure human person? You try to fill that up with something else. For a lot of people, that can be drugs, sex, whatever, or drinking, whatever it is. We try to fill up that hole with something that can't be filled up with anything but the love of God, right? And so then you buy into this contraceptive mentality that I can use, because when you're not whole, you look to use another person, most likely, for your own pleasure. That's where the contraceptive mentality comes in. And the final solution to that, as he saw with his girlfriend, which was his gateway into the abortion industry, his father sent him money for his first abortion so that his father, who was an esteemed doctor, didn't look bad. And for Nathanson's success, that is what, and that's what Nathanson says, that those two abortions of his own children were his gateway into the abortion industry. And so I think just remembering all of that and bringing that together as a whole, remembering that we have to end abortion at the root. We have to be able to do so. And that begins with people understanding what love is again. Love is sacrificial. Love is self-gift. And the only way we can ever begin to do so, understanding that will help people fundamentally to understand what the crucifixion even meant, what Jesus giving his body and blood for us even means. And so I think just remembering that mercy, that love, means so much, and we have to instill that in our youth from a young age by first teaching them about, first of all, the physical beauty of their body, so that we can begin to even have conversations about theology of the body and so much more. So that's kind of what I have to share with you guys today. Thank you for having me.
Yes, wonderful. Myah Abraham, it is true. Authentic love will end abortion. And if you want to reach out to Myah, what did you say your Instagram account was again?
Yeah, you can reach out to @GreatLife_teens, and then you can find my own personal one through there as well.
Okay, wonderful. And the website, Hosea4U.org, Hosea, the number 4, YOU.org. Also, the Attleboro March for Life this weekend, Saturday, 5 p.m., St. John the Evangelist. Thank you so much, Myah. God bless you.